you know the lake and where they're going?
No,
They're not?
no, where everyone is here.
Oh, you go.
Yes, sir.
Board, are you ready? Staff, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
It's 3:04. We'll call this meeting to order of the Upper Guadalupe River Authority Directors Meeting, November the 19th, 2025. Do the roll call. Will Labat, absent. Blake Smith, absent. Diane Mahat,
Present.
McMahon, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Maggie Snow,
Here.
Bill Rector here. Austin Dixon,
Present.
Jonathan Litz,
Here.
Bruce Stacy.
Here.
We have a quorum. If you would please rise for the invocation. I pledge allegiance. Please pray with me. Almighty God, we thank you for this beautiful day and for being allowed to live and work in the hill country of Texas. We thank you for the possibility of rain that lies before us. May the amount be satisfying to replenish our land and begin the restoration of our beautiful Guadalupe River. We thank you, O Lord, for being able to come together today to fulfill our mission of the Upper Guadalupe River Authority. We ask for your guidance and we ask for wisdom in the decisions that we make today. We thank you for the talented people that you have provided to help and guide us. We ask once again for comfort and for strength for those who have lost loved ones. Bless those who offer once again to help with cleanup, and bless those who begin the work of replanting. We ask for guidance as we continue the task of building a flood prediction and flood control system to assure safety on the Guadalupe River. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. We have our visitors and citizens forum. If there's anyone in attendance who would like to address the Board of Directors on an item that is not on the agenda, this is the appropriate time to do so. If you wish to address the board, please go to the podium so that we can record your remarks. Thank you very much. Okay, minutes of the regular meeting of October the 22nd, 2025 is going to be under tab 1. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
I move approval.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Are there any corrections? If none, all those in favor, please vote. Unanimous. Next on the agenda is the financial report for the month ending September 30th, 2025. Tara?
So you have two financial reports in your board packet this month because first we have the final report for FY25 and then we have the first month of FY26. So starting on page 8 for the September report, which is the last month in fiscal year 25, you have the balance sheet. In the top asset section, those first 5 lines through text pool is our cash. And then following below, liabilities are consistent with normal operations. So then on page 9 is the statement of accounts activities for all 12 months of FY25. There might be some minor adjustments to this after our auditor, Eden Company, completes the audit, but Tammy and Tracy worked very diligently to identify all the items that needed to be in FY25 prior to finalizing this report. It was quite an effort. There were many revisions. So on that page 9 in the top section in revenue, you can see one that stands out, which is that the lab exceeded their lab revenue budget overall. And so with transfers accounted from their dedicated fund for equipment, they're expected to make about a $10,000 profit. for this year. So well done. And then also expenses were in line with the budgeted amounts. Those that are under budget are primarily due to unrealized programs. So overall, very strong final report for FY25, and happy to answer any questions.
Next is financial report for the month.
I'm sorry, sir, just need a motion and
Need a
to,
motion
yes,
to
sir,
approve that?
to approve that.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the financial report for September 30th?
I have a question. It might be a typo.
First, we should finish the motion. If
I'll
there's
make
no
I'll second the
discussion.
motion.
Just a second, okay,
No,
discussion. Now,
Okay.
Under page 9, under annual budget, board and committee expenses. Is that first number right?
No, you're right, it's wrong. Oh, wait. I'll have to look into that one and I can
That
send
number I
you.
don't think can be right, can be correct.
Oh, yes, it is, and I'll tell you, the board and committee expenses, so this is the summarized report, which brings together several different accounts. So that annual budget is what y'all approved in September of 2024, and it had a large amount that was in the new initiatives item, which is a committee expense. So then after we moved forward with the Kisters project, we moved that one out of new initiatives into the flood warning, which is what it would be paid out of. So originally, that's why the revised budget amount in the second column shows only 5,000.
Okay.
So just due to a budget revision throughout the year, which I can tell you exactly when that occurred if you want.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
And it's money that was for a committee, that's why it's under board and committee expense, right?
Yes, so the board and committee
Not just board
expenses.
expenses. I
No.
thought that was neutral. Okay,
And we can reclassify that, we'll bring that up with executive committee when we talk, we can bring that up next time we meet to see if you would like to group those different accounts differently, if that isn't communicating it well to you, but yes, that board meeting expenses account is funds for new initiatives and then also insurance and then just regular expenses like printing the board books and things like that. Yeah.
are you satisfied? Okay. Are there other questions? We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Unanimous. Okay, financial report for the month ending October 31st.
Okay, page 11 is the balance sheet through the end of October. In that top section, you'll see that the property taxes amounts have gone up if you compare that to the balance sheet for September, for example. And so that always happens at the beginning of the fiscal year, and then they'll go down through February. Most people pay their property taxes between now and February. And then page 12 starts the statement of account activities for the first month of FY26. You know, with only 1 month, there's not much to note. One is that our insurance policies are primarily paid at the beginning of the year, so you'll see that that category is almost 100%, and it shouldn't change now going forward because we pay those in October for the whole year. Page 13 summarizes our custodial account that we hold as the contract manager and political subdivision for the Plateau Water Planning Group. We finally got our last chunk of money from Water Development Board, so we'll be paying those final bills to the technical consultant and be done with that 6th cycle. And happy to answer any questions.
Do I hear a motion to accept the financial report for October 31st?
second.
Is there discussion? Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Unanimous. Next is the quarterly investment report for the quarter ending September the 30th, 2025. Austin, you want to start off with this?
Sure. I would assume the general operating balance went down a little bit because of some expenses at the beginning of the year. Is that right?
Yes, well, it's primarily less revenue coming in because there's not tax revenue coming in towards the end of the year.
And I call that out only to show you that the total between the quarters is lower, and that's why. It's not because our investments went down. They actually went up, and tech school has done yet again another strong quarter.
That's correct.
And it's been a good year in the market so far, despite the turbulence the past few days. So
Yes.
I'm pleased to send this to report to the board.
Okay. Karen, anything else to add?
Just one other thing to note is, there was adjustments, our depository rate at Happy State Bank is tied to the Fed, and so when they drop the rate, that drops. So we had a change from 4.5 to 4.25 during this quarter. But yes, overall, I agree, everything looks great. Happy to answer any specific questions.
Our investments have done very, very well. A good management team. Do I hear a motion to accept the quarterly investment report?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Okay. Is there discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Unanimous. Thank you. Setting up the 2026 official holidays. This is always an exciting event. Tab 5.
Yes. Very
Carol?
same schedule as last year. We always consult the city and the county and Headwaters to see what they're proposing for holidays, and same schedule that we had in 2025, 12 holidays with a total of 14 days off, and one of those is floating holiday for staff to use when they would like.
Do I hear a motion to accept the holiday schedule as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there discussion? Same as last year. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Unanimous. Thank you. Setting of the dates and times of the 2026 regular board meetings is under tab 6. Tara?
Yes, so we put together a schedule for 10 board meetings in 2026 that would be every month except for July and December. They're predominantly the fourth Wednesday of the month. We move September up to the third Wednesday so that we can meet deadlines for our county tax assessor, so that he can know our property tax rate a little bit earlier in that month to get those tax notices out. And then in November, we do it in the third week for Thanksgiving. And then I believe, would you like to recommend a change to the February one to the third Wednesday?
Would like to request a change to the third Wednesday for the month of February, if no one has an objection to that.
That'll
I
be,
would like that because I already have a commitment for the 4th.
okay.
So I'd appreciate it if we
So-
would.
Then that will be February 18th.
Okay.
So then when you consider this resolution, please just state as amended. And we'll go ahead before y'all sign it and just cross out the February, or one of y'all can cross out the 25th and put the 18th.
Do I hear a motion to accept the meeting schedule as presented?
So moved as amended. Thank you.
I'll second.
Discussion. We have changed the February to the 3rd, and also September and November will be on the third week. All the others will be on the 4th.
And I'll send out calendar invites for all of those, and also generally executive committee meets the Tuesday before the board meeting, so I'll send out those invites as well.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Unanimous. Okay, next is committee reports. Start off with executive committee. The executive committee met on Monday, November the 10th. We reviewed in detail the financial reports that you've been presented for September and October. You have in your agenda only a similar report that we looked at earlier. We also reviewed the proposed revisions to the administrative policies that we will approve later in the meeting. UGRA has spearheaded a meeting between Dr. Charlie McCormick of Shrine University and Dr. David Maidment of the University of Texas in Austin. Discussions were held regarding the flash flood seminar for surrounding counties, especially in Central and West Texas, on the steps we have taken to establish our flood prediction system and the long-term recovery efforts in Kirk County. They also discussed the possibility of a course at Shrine University, training emergency managers and volunteer fire departments in flash flood response. The time of our executive committee meetings was changed from 4 p.m. to 3 p.m. to give us more time to discuss items of importance. We briefly discussed presentation topics for future meetings. We would like ideas from all of you as to what we might discuss in future meetings. Anything else, Maggie? left out?
No, I think that's about it.
Austin?
Outreach and education.
Okay.
Outreach and education, we did not meet since the last board meeting, but there's been a lot of outreach activities that Tara will go over in her staff report. We did make a decision via email about supporting a documentary. Ben Masters is a filmmaker and documentarian. He did Deep in the Heart, which is a wildlife documentary. And so we voted to send that to the board for approval. And then Tara, I'm going to throw it over to you to talk about the rainwater catchment rebate program.
The rainwater catchment rebate program funded 2 applications for reimbursement since the last board meeting, and since the beginning of the program in March of 2011, a total of 728 applications have been funded for $86,655. So far this fiscal year, we've had 4 applications funded for $1,959.
Okay, thank you. Jean?
Yes.
Resources.
Human Resources has not met since the last board meeting, so nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Watershed Stewardship Committee, Diana?
We haven't met since the last board meeting, but staff has some reports.
Okay.
Yes, so we have the feral hog report. I get to be Shelby, so Shelby's had a full day of seeding in Louise Hayes Park, so she is not here to give you the normal natural resources reports. But so this is a long-term program with Kerr County to provide a bounty for harvest of feral hogs, initiated in FY28. The goal is water quality protection because feral hogs tend to visit riparian areas in particular and root, so that will disturb that vegetation but also increase bacteria in those areas. So this quarter bounties is circled, it's 177, which is low for the quarters. But overall for FY25, we had 1,880 rebates that were processed by Kerr County Animal Control, and then they send those invoices to us to provide the reimbursement. So that brings our total through the bounty program since its inception up to 14,763 bounties. And the trapping program is still active. We have 2 traps out, and we are leaving them where they are for now. Hogs have not been seen as often since the flood, and so we are just kind of letting things settle a little bit down, and then we will visit with those landowners this winter and decide if we want to move those traps. We don't have numbers from the USDA trapping for this last quarter just because of the shutdown, but we'll get them from them and then update y'all when we do the next quarterly presentation. So overall, the total that we have through the bounties and the 2 trapping programs, 18,852 hogs to date.
We thank the county for their help.
Definitely. Yes, they do a lot by processing all of those. They receive the actual tails, which is not something we want to add to our workload, so that is a huge support.
I guess there hasn't been any way to determine if the hogs suffered from the flood.
For population, no, we don't have a population survey. I think our best information would be from kind of some of our rural landowners about what they've seen. I know those places where the traps are present, that they haven't seen too many lately, but.
It's related more to the drought than the flood.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't like dry weather, and they don't reproduce as fast. But much of the eastern part of the county is quite a bit below our normal rainfall for this time of year. And I know in our place, our hog population is much less than it has been in the past year.
Well, that's good context. Thank you.
Riparian Park Committee, Maggie.
The Riparian Park Committee held their meeting on October 28th at the park, and we assessed the damage done by the flood, and we talked about plans for remediation. The previous week, UGRA staff had seeded part of the park where the worst part was. Seeds were planted prior to the last rain to take advantage of the moisture. And I don't know whether that's coming up or not. I think they mixed
So
it wrong.
yes, we took Tammy and Nicole and Shelby went out there yesterday and seeded the remainder of the property so that we would have those down before the rain this week. So
Oh, that's great.
yes.
And we walked the whole park, and there were numerous logs that had been deposited on the site. The logs are to be cut in half and are utilized to divert runoff and help stabilize the soil. And then there were some larger logs that we couldn't use, and those were donated to the River Center, and they were to be milled and used for benches. And a couple of those benches will stay on site and be used, put in various places of the park. And during the time we were there, we made several recommendations. There is one area where there's large cypress that were left, and it almost makes a perfect natural amphitheater. And we thought about logs could be placed there, and that could be a kind of a versatile venue that can be used for educational events, lectures, presentations, or even just seating for people that are at the park. One of the concerns when we were there was, of course, runoff. And part of that's from the higher elevation above the park. And we talked about the original diversion plan and came up with several other ideas on that. We also discussed access to the river, whether to put something out to the river, for people to get out there. We also talked about the need for parking and restrooms and explored several ideas on that. And all of these concepts and proposals are going to be considered, and a more formalized plan will be devised and then presented. That's it.
Thank you, Becky. Flood Prediction and Control Committee report. On Monday, November 17th, Tara, Jonathan Letts, and myself traveled to Austin. We spent the day visiting with legislative and senatorial staff. We went there to brief them on the actions that we have taken since July the 4th and to update them on CUR Together long-term recovery group. We also talked about next steps and our goal of flood prediction, communication link, and warning system in place by June of 26. We spoke with legislative assistants of Representatives Drew Darby, Representative Joe Moody, and Representative Wes Verdell. Also spoke with assistants of Senators Lois Colkhurst, Chairman Charles Perry, Senator Bittencourt, and Chairman Pete Flores. We also met with Amanda Adamez in the Governor's Appointment Office. It was a long day, but we all felt that our presentations were appreciated and well received. Jonathan, your comments?
No, I think that sums it up. It was dealing with the staff in that building. Usually you're lucky to get 15 minutes, and we generally had between 30 minutes to 45 minutes with each staff member. We met with senior staff at all offices, either the chief of staff or the person that really is handling this. They all run their offices a little bit different. Some of them have their general counsel, some their committee clerks. But I thought it went very well, and was a time well spent.
Tara, any comments?
No, I agree. I think it went very well. Thank you for your help having those meetings set up, and I think we gave a great presentation.
All right. Habitat conservation, Blake is not here. Anything to add on that?
No updates since the last board meeting.
Okay. Guadalupe River Conservancy.
We haven't met, the board hasn't since our last board meeting here.
Aggregate Production Operation Community
We haven't
Advisory
met yet.
Council.
No, nothing.
Okay. Any other committee activity? Okay, I would like to take the initiative of changing our agenda order. I'm going to ask that we get the presentation from Clint Carter. He is going to give us a presentation that I heard previously at City Council meeting on the geospatial analysis of river restoration planning. It's a great presentation, and I think we will ask him to go ahead and give his presentation now, and we'll suspend the rest of the meeting until he's given his presentation.
Thank you.
Glenn?
Good afternoon. My name is Clinton Carter. I'm a watershed ecologist for Bandera County River Authority and Groundwater District. I'm also associated with the CUR Together River Working Group. I'm a board member for the Texas Riparian Association and also associated with the Kerr County River Foundation. So, without further ado, this is an introduction to some research that's been performed along with some toolkits to help assist with river restoration efforts. So looking at the geospatial work, the main two outputs that we're looking at is the vegetation loss analysis that quantifies vegetation impacts, and then the restoration priority index, and we'll talk about what that means. So first up is the vegetation loss analysis. This uses high resolution pre and post flood imagery that we can essentially compare the difference between the two. This is important to provide this estimate because it provides a foundation as we move forward with our restoration efforts to see where we're at post-flood conditions in a quantified approach. But I would like to take a moment before we dive into the research to just show some pretty impactful overlays on what we can see from the air for a visual interpretation of environmental damage associated with the July 4th flood. So this is a map just downstream of Ingram Lake Dam, and this is captured in July of 2022. So this is pre-existing conditions, and we can see a robust riparian community, mature canopy trees, and then in just a second we'll see the impact of the July 4th floods. So we're looking at a lot of loss, upwards of 90% vegetation loss, large mature trees being uprooted, largely tied to the macro turbulent bed scour that we can see downstream of impoundments, such as the Ingram Lake Dam. So similar concept, this is down below Nimitz Dam here in Kerrville. This is July 2022. And now July 2025. Here's the Schreiner University riparian area. You can kind of see the river trail extension coming from the trailhead. And again, we're seeing major disturbance, channel widening, major scour. Okay. So the final overlay, we're looking at a skinny stretch on the South Fork Guadalupe. And we can see all of those tall bald cypress providing nearly 100% canopy cover over the South Fork. And now it's left largely exposed and vulnerable. So what we can do using geospatial analysis, we use a tool that's called the supervised classification model. But basically what that does is it's able to generate polygons based on similar pixel characteristics from these images. So if you take a look on the map on the left, you can see how we can pull out that vegetation class and generate that into polygons. And once we get those polygons, then we can calculate geometric area and do a loss analysis. So we do the same thing for the map on the right. And you can see it's a pretty accurate model. It does a great job at identifying those pixels representing live vegetation. So with any research or any model output, it's incredibly important to understand what the limitations are. And in this case, this vegetation loss analysis does not differentiate species composition. So trees, shrubs, grasses, they're all grouped together into one vegetation class. And furthermore, at this point in the research, it does not differentiate age class diversity. So whether we're looking at 200-year-old mature canopy trees or 2-year-old sedges, it's still grouped together as one class. So we have our pre-flood and our post-flood vegetation class polygons, we overlay them, and then we can generate the loss analysis. So on the map on the far right, all of the red polygons are indicating what has been lost due to the flood, and also what was there previous, and the green are the vegetation that is remaining. So here's just some examples of the output. We're back here at Ingram Lake Dam, downstream. So everything that was once there is now indicated in red. Here's Louise Hayes Park here in Kerrville. This is zoomed out a little bit. This is at a 1 to 7,000 scale. But we can see a lot of red on the map. Lions Park, Center Point. We have scattered removal of vegetation, but primarily along the banks right there on the park got completely ripped away. So when we perform the analysis, it generates quite a bit of data. And when we zoom out, we're looking at the regulatory floodway from the South Fork in Hunt all the way down the main stem to the county line in Comfort, which is approximately a 30-mile reach. Pre-existing vegetation prior to the flood, we're sitting just over 1,500 acres, and post-flood conditions, we're approximately 748, which represents a 52% loss of riparian vegetation, or 820 acres removed. So this is where the research becomes novel, so to speak. The vegetation loss analysis is a fairly common geospatial workflow for quantifying vegetation loss. But what we can do is take that vegetation loss data and overlay it with the Central Appraisal District parcels, and that we can generate a restoration priority index. So the restoration priority index is a tool that integrates the vegetation loss with a variety of statistical metrics to produce a composite score or ranking system per parcel. The results are categorized from low, medium, high, and very high, but we've also identified parcels that don't have any ownership information according to the Central Appraisal District, and then of course public land. So the City of Ingram, City of Kerrville, and Kerr County. So speaking about the statistical metrics used to derive the composite score, these are what we're currently using. So we're incorporating property size, which is also clipped to the floodway. So if a landowner has 100 acres, but only 10 acres are within the flood zone, that we're only looking at that 10 acres. We're also calculating relative and absolute vegetation loss. And I think both are important. As the percent vegetation loss or relative loss, it captures that proportional severity. With the total vegetation loss, we're looking at that absolute measure reflecting direct ecological impact. Those scores are slightly reduced by parcels that have significant riparian vegetation remaining after the flood. So if you look at the formula, we can assign an individual weight per metric appropriately to derive the restoration priority index. So the applications are far and wide. Since introducing this, there's been quite a few folks come up with some interesting ways to use this tool set. But one is quantify baseline conditions. As we move forward, we know, are we headed in the right direction? We're improving, we have restoration occurring. We can quantify those efforts. Also, ecological property damage assessments per property. You can either look at it at the individual ownership scale, or you can zoom out and look at the entire 30-mile reach. One of my favorite is enhanced communication with stakeholders. I think that's important. And the color coding scheme on there, it's easy, it's intuitive, and it's easy to explain. So again, the limitations of this tool set is that it doesn't differentiate between trees, shrubs, and grasses. It also assumes prior vegetation conditions were desirable. So doesn't account for invasive species, ligustrum groves, or rhododendrons. And it does not yet include geomorphic variables, such as slope, valley confinement, and things of that nature.
Has your observation been that the rhododendrons in particular didn't seem to be bothered a bit by the flood?
On the normal routes that I take to get to work, that seems, from what I can see from the road, it almost seems like that was the only thing that survived the flood.
And got spread out.
Yes.
It's the flood made that whole problem a lot worse.
It's popping up everywhere.
Every little piece that breaks off.
That's right, that's another
will
plan.
sprout a new plant.
We have had renewed interest from landowners, though, to participate in the Parks and Wildlife Management Program because they're more paying attention more closely to the vegetation, the types of vegetation, and a lot of them have wondered about it. So we've been able to sign up quite a few landowners that'll get treatment next year for that.
I'm afraid it's like the feral hogs, just trying to stay up with it is a challenge.
If only it was impacted by drought as much, too.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we take the restoration priority index and we zoom out back at that 30-mile reach scale, this is an example of what we can see. Up on the South Fork, we see a lot more red and dark red, and then it kind of changes throughout the main stem, and then closer to Comfort, it seems to lighten up just a little bit. So data can be generated in one of 27 different ways, and this is just one way to look at the data, but one of the outputs, looking at acreage, not individual parcels, out of nearly 1,000 acres that were affected in the study area, we've identified 126 of those acres to be very high priority for outreach and for restoration efforts, followed by 203 acres classified as high priority. So we've taken this data and we've created a interactive, user-friendly dashboard. And this is what we're looking at as an example of the dashboard output. And this is what's available for researchers, practitioners, decision makers, and for the public. You can click on any one of those parcels that show up on the map, and it will provide that attribute window that we can see where we have the property acres, the vegetation lost, the vegetation remaining, the percent loss, and then the priority level. On the top right, where it says the restoration priority index, that's a drop-down menu. You can select that and quickly filter any of those parcels based on those different classes from low, medium, high, and very high. We've also included on the layers tab where you can switch between the riparian or the restoration priority index that we're looking at now. You can get that off the screen entirely and just look at those red and green polygons representing the vegetation loss analysis, or you can get rid of that entirely and just switch and toggle between the high resolution pre and post flood imagery. So in conclusion, the vegetation loss analysis establishes that baseline disturbance in a quantified approach. And the restoration priority index helps guide large-scale restoration efforts, such as the San Antonio Botanical Garden coming in, the Hill Country Alliance, and various groups, where you're looking at 30+ miles, 1,500+ landowners to get involved with large-scale restoration practices. We believe this is data-driven, scalable, and actionable.
Who provides this database, the tool?
Who provides it? This is currently hosted by the Bandera County River Authority and Groundwater District.
Did y'all develop it?
We did.
That's awesome.
We developed it from scratch.
Wow.
So this is a QR code that will take you right to that dashboard. But I also wanted to mention briefly, I believe it's in your board book, we also have developed a river restoration toolkit, which has a few more QR codes on there. The first QR code it just takes you to the vegetation loss analysis. So it's different from this QR code. This QR code actually includes the restoration index. But the second QR code I think is important that has been developed is a community photo monitoring program, which encourages landowners and it encourages folks in the community to get involved with the restoration process, to go to your favorite spot on the river or your creek or your backyard and capture photos over time and celebrate these areas of recovery, but also identify areas of concern. And those pictures, they get sent to a centralized database that can be used by the community, similar to kind of like an iNaturalist citizen science program. But it can also be used by researchers and practitioners, if need be. And then the third, last but not least, is a community planting survey, where this is an effort to keep track of trees, shrubs, grasses, seeds that have been acquired and are being distributed and allocated to landowners and to other restoration groups for restoration practices. I think it's an incredibly important idea to try to build a living map on what species are going where, what species are working well, and then see this map come together with all of these restoration efforts that are occurring. And I believe that's all I have for you, so thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Excellent work.
Question.
Yes, sir.
The area that you covered is the floodway.
That's right, it's the regulatory floodway.
Is it possible to expand it to the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain?
It is possible, but to do that takes significant storage capabilities. When I was looking at this, my original approach was the 100-year floodplain or maybe the 500-year floodplain. And as I was generating segments and looking at the damage that had occurred, from the subsamples that I was looking at, it seemed like there was very minimal damage that actually occurred outside of the active floodway. There was damage, but significant damage seemed to occur in that sort of high velocity channelized area of the regulatory floodway. And so looking up at 30 miles of study area, if I could clip those high resolution imagery files just to the regulatory floodway, it made the data management approach a little bit more feasible for us. But yes, to answer your question, you can extend it to the 100 or the 500-year floodway, or even further past where we go and hunt. Because unfortunately, the regulatory floodway cuts off a little shy on the South Fork, Guadalupe, and Hunt. And when we've introduced this to some of the landowners at some of the workshops that have been held, landowners actually fall outside of that study area, and they were asking about that. So that may be something that we consider and look at.
Thank you.
Excellent work. Anyone else, other questions? I'd like to point out that Clint is a Tybee graduate,
Yes.
a resident of Kerrville.
I am born and raised, still here.
Yeah, and I intended to provide that context when we started too. If we think back to Todd Bach's presentation at the last board meeting about the long-term recovery group, Kerr Together, and those 16 groups that work within that, certainly that river working group is of particular interest to us. So we'll plan to have a river working group topic, at upcoming board meetings too. And so even though Clint Carter's employment is over the hill in the next basin, he is a Kerrville resident and has been putting a lot of his talents towards flood recovery since the flood. So we're happy to have him strengthen that partnership with Bandera River Authority and Groundwater District too.
I do have a question. It's exceptional work. Have you seen other communities use a tool like this
I have not.
in practice, or is this unique to us?
I believe this is novel. The vegetation loss analysis has been used in the literature for various disturbance regimes, whether that be flood, fire, or hurricane. Any local communities, I have not come across that being utilized. But furthermore, the Restoration Priority Index that was developed as a result of the data from the original work, as far as I'm concerned, that's never been done before.
Thank you.
It's going to be interesting to have you look at the restoration work that is done and see green returning.
That's the goal, is to turn all those red polygons back to green. And we'll be able to track that progress and associate that with our efforts.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Exceptional. Thank you.
Great work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Clint.
Next on our agenda is item number 6, which goes to tab 7. And we have a speaker who is asked to speak on this topic. Tom Mosey.
Thank you. Thank you, Gord. As you move forward with applications for funding for flood warning systems, I think it's important for the entire board to understand that there is a document that has been prepared over the last 2.5 months, comprised of the county UGRA, the cities, okay, that have done this. Jonathan's a member of it, Bill was, and Tara was instrumental in the whole thing. Basically, what it is, it's a comprehensive. Do you have anything you can pull up, Tara?
We can pull up the schematic if you'd like.
Okay,
the
yeah,
architecture.
do that, just in. But what we did is we identified a comprehensive flood warning system, okay, that is very accurate in the prediction part of the flood warning system, and very accurate and very effective in disseminating the flood warning to areas that could possibly be impacted by the flood. It's comprised of a phased approach, okay, that takes weather information from the Weather Service, runs it through the model that the UGRA has provided and is being developed by Kister, okay, that predicts where the flood would be and to what extent it would be. The next step is, in a higher probability of the prediction and the reliability, is the prediction from rain gauges, okay, to be determined throughout the county or throughout the river basin. And with that, then, it's like a 90% probability of being accurate, okay, where the flood would be and to what extent the flood would be. The next thing is stream gauges. Now you're probably at a 99% reliability of where the flood will be and to what extent. But all of this information then, so it's a flood warning information that flows into a communications center, okay? Early stuff can be provided to dashboards to emergency management personnel that you see in the lower right-hand portion of this diagram. The communication center, though, takes the information from the prediction portion of the flood warning system and sends that out automatically. And let me come back to automatically in just a minute. Sends out automatically to sirens, okay, to road closure, road warning indications, and to other entities that would be able to receive that flood warning information, like camps or individual residences or business or whatever, RV parks, that type of thing. All they need to do is to have a receiver capable of receiving the transmission that goes out from the communication center. So what we've done with that is, when I say automated, it does not require an individual to set off the system, okay? It can be set up so that an individual emergency management coordinator, whomever, would have an opportunity to shut the signal going off, shut off for like a 2-minute period or some small amount. So what we've done with the requirements is we've designated everything you see in that diagram with specific requirements for which contracts could be led or proposals could be received. So this is what this set of requirements would be for, is to use that as establishing requirements and a request for proposal, okay? And with that, then the implementation area. So the committee, the team has created the requirements. They're in a document which can be disseminated to whomever, okay? And with that, then the purchasing organization, whether it's UGRA or whomever, okay, can use those documents then to gather up the proposal from the entities. We interviewed many companies, okay? There's a lot of great capability out there to provide flood warning systems. And to me, it's going to be a quantum jump in safety for the Guadalupe River Authority and the basin to have a safe warning and an adequate warning for people to get to safety way before a flood occurs. So that's the thumbnail of it. And just to let you know, as you proceed with funding and grants and applications, that this document, these requirements exist in detail.
Do we have a copy of that, of the requirements document?
I can make it available to the board. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it goes through everything you see up there's got a detailed requirement for it, from anywhere from sirens all the way back to rain gauges and so forth. So that's it.
Tom, thank you for your work. As
Okay.
Tom mentioned, this requirement document is going to make us ready as soon as applications can be filled out. We've got the requirements that we need.
I think you've got the basis for what could be done. Let me put it that way. Not necessarily what would be done, but what could be done. Okay, thanks.
Terry, you want to go ahead and introduce our,
Yes, item 6.
yeah, I understand.
All right, so as a board, your prior actions in 2024 to use a portion of our surplus to get a first phase going to improve flood warning through the Kisters project and through the recommendations report that they're going to bring forward. You know, that has really allowed us to provide leadership at this stage in developing a flood warning system. And certainly that's been strengthened through our participation, both through President Rector and Director Letts and myself, on the CURD Together Long-Term Recovery Group, working group for the flood warning system as well. So we anticipate that, so we're really, you know, building on those future actions and are in this position to help kind of guide that flood warning system. So we anticipate that the Water Development Board will announce availability of a funding program to implement the charges that were identified in Senate Bill 3, you know, anticipate that sometime in the next few months. And to kind of maximize our previous efforts and the current efforts of the working group, we could be the applicant of that funding and coordinate with Kerr County, City of Kerrville, and City of Ingram. So this item under number 6 is to discuss that role of UGRA as an applicant for the Water Development Board funding and to provide that direction to me to approach the city and the county regarding an interlocal agreement that would identify UGRA as the lead applicant for that future funding program through our development board and identify those future agreements that would need to be executed with those partner entities in order to operate the system.
And one of the things that we did learn in Austin is that the timing for these funds is going to be critical and perhaps not as rapid as we would like for them to be available. We are committed to a system that is functional. By June of 26, we want to make our river safe by this summer, so we are looking toward that goal. And passing this resolution is moving toward that goal where we are authorizing UGRA to move forward with getting those bids in order. Anything else, sir?
I think that's it. We would like to, you know, I'd like to know if that, how the item is to approve for UGRA to be the applicant once that funding program is released, and to work with our partners to have agreements in place ahead of that. Really, this and the next several items is to kind of tee us up in a position so that we can move forward quickly with implementing a system to meet those goals. So we wanted to provide opportunity for the board to discuss that role for UGRA, since we haven't done that yet.
Do I hear a motion to approve resolution 2025-35?
I'll second.
Is there discussion?
I think this is really important, and I've been very involved with a lot on the flood warning system with the long-term recovery. And I think the city, the county, and city of Kerrville, city of Ingram, and Kerr County have all told me verbally anyway that they support UGRA being the lead agency and filing the application for the flood warning system with the Texas Water Development Board. So this is the first step. Next step is going to be to work out interlocal agreement between all those entities. But we need to start. This is the first step to get us going.
And Bill, I would add, I would encourage us to try to be ready in May, because a lot of summer camps have staff and campers arriving by mid-May.
Do we, Tara, is it another item or bill when we talk about, I guess, the plan to start spending some of the 1.5 million? Is that under this item, or is it?
There's not an action item to that. I think if you wanted to discuss that, it fits under this item. But it's not part of the motion, but I think it's context for how the board wants to move forward with flood warning project.
Well, I'll start it. Is that, my view is that we cannot wait for the Water Development Board to come out with their guidance and their application process. I've talked to their deputy executive administrator and their other individual that's over the flood warning portion of it. And the goal might have been of SB3 to get this done before next summer, but because they did not allow for emergency rule to be, not implemented. So the standard state rule process is going in place, and I do not see that there's any chance of them being ready for applications until late January or February. Then there's going to be a 30-day period, more than likely, for those applications to be submitted. And then you have to have them analyzed by the Water Development Board, and contracts negotiated with the entity. And each of those steps, I can't see it going faster than 30 days. So that puts us to maybe getting funding by May. But if you get funding by May, then you got to do an RFP. It's another 30 or 60 days. Then you got to do the contract there. So I don't see that the funding for the Water Development Board can take place until probably September, October next year, 2026. And we can't wait that long. So my thought is that we should go with 4 initial sirens and then upgrade or install additional rain gauges that are outlined or will be identified by the Kister study. And if there's any stream gauges that we need to do, look at that as well. But I think we need to move down that direction and really do, as soon as we can get interlocal agreements or simultaneous with the interlocal agreements, prepare an RFP to do those items.
Kim and William are working very hard to try to move these funds into our county as quickly as possible. And we wish them Godspeed, but the words that we got from Austin when we visited was that it looked like probably summer before funds would actually be flowing. And if we want our river to be safe this summer, we need to move faster than that. William?
Would it be appropriate for you to make a quick
Yes.
comment?
Absolutely. Please.
William Woodson with the long-term recovery operation. I think you're exactly correct. However, we believe that the governor may have authority to waive rules. And I think it's time that I've been recommending to some of my supervisors that perhaps we have a joint letter drafted and sent to the governor's office for consideration to expedite the process, given the situation. And that would be my suggestion to you. You can move as you will, but I really feel like I'm an impatient guy. Our goal is safety, and this is essential to the long-term recovery.
Thank you. And, we would like to work with you and to obtain funds as quickly as possible, however we can help. But we feel like that we need to keep our powder dry. That we need to be ready to move forward if that is not possible.
Could we support the letter that he recommended, the request? I would think if we need to go on record for doing that or not, that it's important.
But our primary goal is to have a safe river.
I think the way, the wording in the resolution would give our general manager authority to sign that letter.
Yes.
So, I mean, as I'm not looking at it, I read it last night, and as I recall, it did, and the intent was to give the general manager authority to move forward on some of this stuff, because can't wait for once a month to do some of this. And of course, you can call a special meeting if we do need to.
Is
Yes,
there any
we-
discussion.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Unanimous. Let's move to item 7, which is going to be tab number 8.
Yes.
This is a memorandum of understanding between Kerrville Public Utility Board and Lower Colorado River Authority and UGRA on the middle mile. Tara?
So the next two items are related, and I think it'd benefit us to discuss them jointly and hear from a couple of partners who've really been essential in getting us to this point. So the Texas Broadband Office is accepting grant applications for the construction and improvement of middle mile infrastructure in Texas, and UGRA convened a group to discuss the possibility of a Kerr County application to that program only on October 21st. And so we have moved very fast, and that grant's going to be submitted tomorrow. So extremely proud of being able to work with this group and of what they're able to accomplish in a month. So your packet on page 30 describes the application. The majority of the ask of the grant is for expansion of LCRA's private LTE network that we would hope our future rain gauges and stream sensors are going to be able to communicate on, as well as warning infrastructure. So it's a dedicated network for communication of critical infrastructure. It's reliable, cyber secure, and is proven for transmitting this type of information. The grant also includes some expansion of K-Pub fiber assets and also to serve some City of Kerrville critical infrastructure facilities with some redundant, reliable communication. So K-Pub is the lead applicant for that grant, and LCRA is a co-applicant since they are going to be the owner of that LTE network. One of the grant's purposes is to serve flood warning systems that UGRA will be developing. So therefore, that item 7 that we're currently on, that's an MOU between those three entities. And then item 8 builds on that because it is broadly, because there's broad support for that grant among all of the entities that are parties to that ILA. And in addition to the ILA, there's numerous letters of support that have been submitted for the grant. So just like to recognize a couple individuals and their organizations who've made a tremendous effort to get the application ready to go. Tony Perez, give a little wave, he's the lead engineer with K-Pub, and K-Pub stepped up to be the lead applicant, and their staff and their grant administrator that they already had working for them has done a tremendous amount of work to get that narrative ready. It's over 60 pages that's going to be submitted for the grant at last count. And then Eric Anderson with LCRA is their VP of Business Development and their telecommunications team. And he, as well as Eddie Kriegel, have put together the technical and the pricing information that is needed for the grant and really assisted with the effort as a whole. Have been a great resource. Last month, again, we heard from Todd Bach with the Kerr EDC about the long-term recovery effort. And so 2 tremendous assets from that team. And you already heard from William Whitson, but also Kim Fouts. And they're the consultants and the experts, especially in recovery grant funding. So I'll hand it over to William for a couple of words about the middle mile grant, and then I'm happy to have any questions about it. You've heard everything, you've heard the extent of my knowledge about telecommunications. So if you have any more specific questions, we'll ask Tony and Eric.
Thank you, Terry. You're being modest as usual. She has a lot more knowledge and has been a rock star in this. And besides our gentleman Clint here, there's some other rock stars in the room too. The K-Pub team has stepped up, and I guess you're going to cue up this presentation. Great, thank you. You were talking about funding and going forward. Well, that's what we do. We go try and find the money and try to fit it into the long-term recovery operation. And there's a need for speed in getting ready and making sure that we can communicate with assurity to the public that summer 26 is a bit safer than summer 25. And so that's the whole thought, the whole goal is how do we take what's already here instead of, in all due respect to my friend, building it from scratch. We didn't have time to do that. We took a look at what was available, and one of the pots of funds that was available was this middle mile broadband grant. And the idea is to feed data into your predictive model and the flood warning system as fast as we can. So the idea here is with these extra rain gauge data, with the extra stream flow data, you want to move it quicker. I think it was working in the past on, what, 30-minute cycles or 45-minute cycles?
It was variable based on the type of data.
Depending on the age of the instrument and the type of information you're trying to get. Well, now we're going to try to move it up to 5-minute increments. And to be able to do that, you have to have an electronic highway to be able to move that data from the remote areas of Kerr County and into the UGRA predictive system. So this is the first pot of money that's dedicated at moving information. That's the key to the flood warning system, is you have to feed it, and you have to feed it accurate data. And so we're going to take advantage of the electronic highway that our friends at LCRA have kind of constructed and build upon that. We are basically looking at around $15 million for this grant. The application's due tomorrow. We've been working on it feverishly with your team and several other people in here. I think I've wore you out getting you on the phone. I wore out your staff, Tony. I mean, we've just been working hard to meet this deadline, and I'm pleased to hear with your support we would be able to meet that goal. The funding for the predictive model software is the key to it. The one you developed with Kister, that's where the information's got to go. And the more data you feed it, the higher the probability of the prediction, and the faster we can move quicker to warning the public. Because the problem on July 4th was time. People didn't get the warning in time. And the sooner they get that, the more evasive action they can take and get to higher ground. A lot of this you already know. The data is going to be fed from multiple sources. We're even reaching out to TxDOT, who has a system as well. I've never seen anything come together quicker because everybody understands the common goal here is to be safer. And the flood warning group is developing all of the criteria and cost estimates. As you've heard, Tom's been doing a good job with his effort. And the whole idea is to move this information as quickly as we can once it's available. Again, this is the model where you take the data out in the hinterlands of the Kerr County, which is rough terrain. A lot of steep grades and canyons and remote locations, and we have to move the information from that environment, from a geographically diverse environment, into a common system. There's the model of how it works, and you see the part that Tom was showing you, which is the key to it. That's what we're trying to feed. And so the bucket of funds we identified with the Texas Comptroller, broadband middle mile, will allow us to fund the infrastructure, the electronic highway, to begin to feed the data into the system. These are a couple of the exhibits from the grant. This is a map that LCRA produced with additional, they have sites already in place, but the magic of the grant is going to be able to add more. And then you're going to get funding to also add more rain gauges, stream flow data gauges, and these kinds of things to, again, feed this model quicker to be able to give the public warning faster. The interlocal agreement would be, KPUB is the lead, thank you. They've stepped up big time. The sub-lead on the grant is the Lower Colorado River Authority, again, because we saw they already had kind of the infrastructure, they had the bones, so why not enhance it? Why not take what you have to move it quicker? Because we don't have time to go out and build, 15 more cell tower sites. Other partners we've enlisted through the long-term recovery operation is the city of Kerrville, city of Ingram. Kim and I went to their council meetings and we've been talking to their mayor quite a bit. Kerr County itself, UGRA obviously, and Tara and her team, and we've even got Hill Country Telephone involved in this as well, and they've been a great partner in supporting this. So you can see it's a public-private effort to move fast to solve the problem. There will be an MOU with KPUB, LCRA, and UGRA to kind of take a look at it from the perspective of the ownership and the maintenance of the flood gauges or the fiber or the cell tower systems that are moving this information around. And then, of course, your main focus is the heart. It's the heart of the whole thing. And I have to commend you for starting that work. And Matt Kister and the group you put together is amazing. And they're going to have the capability when they get the information to make an accurate prediction, which will then be fed out to the emergency management folks. We in the long-term recovery operation have put together all of the local fire departments, police departments, the sheriff's office. Everybody's been involved in the conversation as to, okay, when you get this information, what do you do with it? And how quickly can we get it out? And there'll be some sort of automatic protocols set in place to make the system complement the electronic data and move information quicker, and that way hopefully save lives and save time. The warning system grant, you'll be the lead applicant. Now we're switching our attention to the second bucket of money. So this is never easy, right? The state appropriated money to do this, but they did so in 2 batches. So the first batch is the flood warning feeding data, the broadband system. The second part is the one that Tara was talking about. And again, that's when I heard that, they're going to be a little slower at this. I was like, no. We need to speed up. And so I'll be more than happy to draft at your direction a letter, maybe for UGRA to send, the city, the mayor, the county judge, whoever needs to sign it, to get the attention of the governor that, like, I'm sure that the process is going to work fine. However, there's a need for speed, and probably the legislative intent was to move quicker than the schedule that we're on. So that's basically the presentation for now, but we'll be back because we have other interlocal agreements we want to talk to you about, talking about the long-term recovery operation, how we can help you in your responsibilities, how we can help you find additional resources and carry out your responsibilities, and the other partners that we have in the process. We have multiple other grants and planning initiatives in the works, Ingram, Hunt, all over the place. So we're busy, we're here to help, and that's the end of my presentation. Hope that gives you good context for what this is all about.
William, thank you so much. We appreciate your efforts and your work and Kim's work for this. There are a lot of parts that have to come together to make this work. And so your agenda is thick tonight because we are trying to get everything approved and moving forward. Do I hear a motion to accept resolution 25-36? Do I hear a second? Second. Is there discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. We now move to number 9, which is the interlocal agreement which William has just wrote. This is the next integral part to obtain the middle mile grant. Do I hear a motion to approve resolution 2025-37?
I'll move.
Second.
Is there discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. If you'd like a short break, I'm going to sign these documents so that William can get them in the hopper and get them ready to send off.
Yeah, we'll just pause a few minutes to do that.
If anyone needs a break, this is the time to do it. Provided by third parties as proprietary that they do not want to have disclosed, and we need to give our general manager the ability to sign those confidentiality agreements, to give her the ability to protect that information. That has not come up previously, but we need to do that at this point as she encounters that information. So I need a motion to approve resolution 2025-38. Second. Is there discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Thank you. Moving to tab number 11. Discussion for review and approve release of request for proposals for grant administrative services. Tara.
Yes, So we want to position ourselves, like we talked about, to act quickly when that Water Development Board grant is announced. And so this is another component. And I can attest to the asset that a grant administrator is through our recent work with KPUB, getting this middle mile grant together. And they had a team of at least, I think, 3 to 5 folks that were making sure that all of the requirements were met so that there wouldn't be any administrative issues with the application. So, you know, UGRA, you've got a small but mighty team here, but we probably would benefit tremendously from having assistance from a grant administrator if we're looking at applying to Water Development Board for that funding program that's yet to be announced. So this item is to approve the release of a request for proposals for a grant administrator. We intend to release it soon and have it open for 4, maybe 6 weeks. I'll work out an exact schedule and have that reviewed, that timeline as well, with the Flood Prediction and Control Committee prior to releasing that. And then I asked Kim if she wouldn't mind just kind of giving us some highlights about what a grant administrator can do and how that would help us with this process.
Thank you, Tara. There's a couple of different ways to do this. One, for a grant application, is getting a grant administrator up at the front versus going through the process, doing your own application, and then bringing them in after the award. So all of this work typically is reimbursable through the grant. So they will respect when they respond to the request for proposals that are sent out. They will have to disclose what the charges will be. They'll have to be within the parameters that are set by the state of Texas. And so all of the work, advanced work that's done, is reimbursable through the grant. All the after work, as important as it is to have help on the front end to make sure that you have quality application, it's almost more important also to have them in on the back end because they help with RFPs, making sure that it meets all the state requirements. There are special provisional requirements for purchasing. And then also all of the record keeping. They are very instrumental in providing all the record keeping that is required by the state. So you are insured at the end of the process and when everything is operational and the bills are paid, that there's not going to be any kind of recapture discussions or anything because you failed to dot the I or cross the T as it relates to any of the processes that you've been involved with. They're very good also at helping with project management. So if you get a good grant administrator, they help with that. They also can help with providing contracts. So there's specific contract provisions that are required by the state. And then if you have a federal grant, they also do for federal grants as well. But they make sure that all of your contracts are in compliance with all the state requirements. So it's just very helpful, and again, it is paid for and is included as part of the grant as far as the expenses go.
Sounds pretty important.
What would be the duration of having a grant administrator? What time limit or line are we looking at?
I think it would, I believe the way it's worded in the RFP that it's through the term of the project that's selected for. So I'm not entirely sure what our timeline would be for that grant since we haven't yet applied and haven't seen the rules for it, but it could be 1 to 2 years, I think, for this type of project.
You'll notice in your agenda book, this is quite a lengthy process to require a grant administrator to interview for one. It's an important person to be on the team.
Yes, and you will have a committee that sits, there's an evaluation criteria that's included in that RFP, and there'll be a committee that is set up to do an independent individual evaluation. And then each of the committee members' information will come together, and that's the basis for determining which grant administrators that you want to interview for final selection.
And so the makeup of that committee, as well as the timeline of reviewing of the RFPs that are received, is what I want to work out those details with our Flood Prediction and Control Committee before we release it too. But we have a pretty good idea about what those will be.
Any other questions for Tim? Thank you very much. Do I hear a motion to adopt resolution 2025-39? Second. Is there discussion?
I'll just make a comment of how critical this is. In another life that I had when I was at the county, many will recall we had a number of grants with the Tax Water Development Board, and we hired a grant administrator at the front end of that, and it was critical. I mean, there's everything from the type of, if you're buying steel, some of that steel has to be made in the United States. The wages of the contractors have to be certain guidelines. If you have, minority-owned businesses, some of the requirements in state and feds have. So all of those requirements are really important that there's no local entity has the ability to really follow those. I know the city of Kerrville, same thing. On their big grants, they've always hired a grant administrator. They're critical, especially working with Water Development Boards, where I have a lot of experience. In fact, they basically said it was a very good idea for us to move right along on this.
Other comments? Again, getting this in place is part of our being ready to move forward rapidly. Our goal being summer of '26. Do I hear we do have a motion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Moving on to tab number 12, Kurt Gather.
So we took care of that item already,
You already did that.
and we'll move on to item 12.
Go to 12, annual review and approval of UGRA administrative policies.
Yes, this is exciting stuff here. This is an annual item that the board needs to review, particularly because it contains our investment policy, which is required to be reviewed annually. And the changes to the administrative policies document are outlined on page 79. Fairly minimal for this year, just some updates to the professional services list. I added some additional financial institutions on our approved brokers list that we can go to for CDs or when our depository agreement comes up again. I updated the committed fund balances for FY26. Those were approved with the 2026 budget that y'all did in September. At the time, we had, and the value for the lab is slightly different than what y'all approved in September, just because when we got the invoice for that autoclave piece of equipment we bought right at the end of the year, it was the shipping charges were a little bit different. So that number is like $100 different than what y'all approved in September. And then I had Tony go through our procurement requirements to make sure that they matched current statutory requirements. And then there were some minor formatting changes. So.
And I need to remind everyone that everyone is required to review the Code of Ethics policy yearly, and we need to sign that.
Is it
And
that
also
time?
our ethics, also our, we have to turn in our funding, our conflicts of interest policies.
Yes, we'll handle that in January when we go over the board member training. We'll provide a clean copy of the signature page on this administrative policies document for you next month and have that signed for your file.
All right, do I hear a
Yes, in
motion
January.
to approve resolution 2025-4?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. All those in favor? Thank you. I believe we are to staff report.
Well, we just have one more boring item too, 13, lucky number 13, tab 14. So this is an annual item to dispose of items that we no longer use or no longer working through our surplus policy. That is part of that admin policy you just looked at. Page 131 and 132 of your packet just summarizes those items that we want to get rid of. And I have, if you would like more information about any of those or to see a lovely picture of these relics, I have the full surplus packet here.
A paper shredder. Okay.
Do you want it?
No.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion to approve resolution 2025-41 to dispose of these items? Second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor?
You make,
We may sell our surplus items.
thank you. You make Nicole very happy. She likes to clean up.
The staff report.
Yes. So we've, since the last board meeting, Shelby she was in the audience at the Texas Water Symposium that was organized by China University and participated in some of the Q&A section. It focused on riparian restoration. Attended the fall conference for Texas Water Association. Our natural resources team gave 16 presentations over 4 days on the Guadalupe River and aquatic ecology as part of the UGRA second grade science day field trip at Riverside Nature Center. So in all, about 291 students got to participate in that program this fall, and we will do that again in the spring. This was for Kerrville ISD, and in the spring we'll have from schools elsewhere in the county participate in that program. We hosted a booth at the Water Street Festival, which was a great event. I don't know if any of y'all were down there, but had really great time visiting with folks in the community. Natural Resources team hosted the training class for the Hill Country Master Naturalists and gave them a tour of the Edgescape. And we, UGRA, partnered with the city of Kerrville for a river trail cleanup just this past Saturday. We had over 180 volunteers, and they teamed up to collect 4 dumpsters full of trash, and as well as numerous items that wouldn't fit in the dumpsters. And they also broadcast some seeds along the river in Louise Hayes Park. So Matthew did a great job getting together that kind of modified river cleanup format in a short amount of time, and immediately people asked when we were going to be doing it again.
I was talking to a man who said he wanted to thank UGRA for providing the river trail cleanup. And then just today I heard from another person who said, we sure appreciate UGRA's leadership on that. The man I was talking to said that they found something, it was between Kerrville Shriner Park and the 534 Loop Bridge, I think. It was so huge, they had 20 volunteers and they couldn't get it out.
Oh, wow.
You know, I thought that all things of that size had been taken up by now, but apparently there's still a lot out there.
Yes, I am surprised they found something that big, but there was definitely a lot of items out there. Yeah, which I think we'll continue to see for.
And the person today said that she hoped that UGRA will do some more.
Yes.
I talked to one person Saturday, they were out there and they picked up all they could, and there was still too much left to sow the seed, so they felt like they needed to go back and pick up more.
Investigations, we continue to hear from folks who are noticing have concerns about work being conducted in or around waterways, and so we're getting them to the regulatory authorities as best we can, primarily Parks and Wildlife, if it's reference to moving gravel within the stream. And then there was an accidental sewage discharge downstream of Center Point Dam, which we were alerted to right away, and it was already being addressed. So we just supported by doing some follow-up testing, and everything came back normal with nutrients and bacteria. So it was a short-term item. The Guadalupe Basin Flood Planning Group, they're offset from the water plan by, they're each 5-year cycles and they're offset. So we're about midway through the flood plan, and we're almost at the end of the water plan. So we had a meeting on November 12th and approved the tech memo, which is an interim deliverable for that regional flood plan, and also discussed flood plan goals for the region. The Curd Together Long-Term Recovery Group board and working groups are coordinating our long-term recovery efforts. The 2 working groups that your staff and board primarily participate in are the River Working Group. They've had 5 meetings so far, and probably are going to meet about once a month or more frequently if needed. UGRA co-sponsored a series of workshops there was 3 that were conducted in the last couple of weeks, and Shelby also presented at those. So those were with landowners that were impacted by the flood and had damage to riparian property. They had a site walk and got seed mixes and also some live plants to help start restoration at their properties. Again, the seeding occurred in Louise Hayes Park just a couple hours ago. We finished that up. And as Austin mentioned, we are co-sponsoring a documentary riparian restoration. That focuses on riparian restoration.
I think that's really exciting.
Yes, it
She
should be,
makes quality films. It would be really valuable.
yes, and that we had miscellaneous funds budget in the public education, because when we talked about that this summer, we knew that things were going to come up this year that we couldn't account for, and so that was something that we were able to, without a budget amendment, be able to sponsor that film by just designating that miscellaneous fund.
Ben hit the ground running. We verbally finalized everything Friday, and he was up here filming Saturday.
Oh, cool.
Sunday, I guess he came
Very
out.
cool.
So he's, I said, we still need a contract and an actual
Cost.
proposal. He's assured me that, we're good.
So then we heard quite a bit about work efforts of the flood warning system working group already through previous items on the agenda. We've had 4 meetings so far, and that group's also going to meet about once a month. So there's 3 sub-working groups within that. The development team, you got an update from Mr. Mosier about their work product, that recommendations document. The telecommunications group, we've heard a lot about them today also, with that big accomplishment of getting the middle mile grant submitted. Emergency services sub-working group is led by Chief Maloney, and they've met twice and are making good progress on their recommendations. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was for y'all to save the date on December 17th as a special board meeting. Potentially, I'll work with President Rector, but we might be ready to have an interlocal agreement with the other entities about UGRA being the lead applicant for the Water Development Board grant, and there may be some other items that come up that we want to be able to discuss and take action on prior to our next scheduled board meeting, which is in January. So I'll send out a meeting reminder or meeting calendar invite for that date, and we'll let you know in a couple of weeks if we need to keep that. And I'll pass it over to Tammy.
Again, mine are short and sweet. The classroom and lecture hall continue to be frequently used. In the month of October, we had 20 rentals, which is quite a bit for, we haven't had that many in 1 month. So, Eden Company will be the one that are doing our audit, and they should be ready to present to the board in January. We've given them everything that they should need to get everything ready for that. We are in the position right now of looking for another maintenance technician. We've got some applicants. We will be doing some interviews in the middle of December because of holidays and vacation schedules, and having them start in January. And the rain tank is very low, and we're hoping that we will catch the rain that, everybody cross your fingers, that we're going to get in the next 2 days.
Some, but not too much.
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen our staff too many times out in the riparian area or in the edges gate, pulling weeds and working out there, so good luck interviewing.
Yes,
thank you.
It's good motivation when you have to pull the weeds yourself.
I know. And now Nicole.
Hello. The lab's been doing really well. We're still pretty busy with wastewater customers, but our revenue is about where it usually is this time of year. It drops a little bit more because public water systems aren't required to do as much testing in the winter time as they are in the summertime, but we're sitting in a pretty good spot right now. Like I said, wastewater testing is going to continue to increase through January, because this is when people that have septic systems that only have to test once a month for their once a year for their permit, they usually come in at the end of the year. So we get a lot of BODs around this time. And I did participate at an event at Shriner called Expanding Your Horizons, which is for 6th through 8th grade girls who are interested in STEM. So we had all kinds of engineering, mathematics, scientific things. There was even nursing stuff there for girls from all over Kerr County, not just Kerrville, to come and participate. There were about 65 girls there that got to pick 3 different labs and learn about different careers in the STEM and what you can do being interested in science. So that was a lot of fun. But now it.
Okay, so I'll be Shelby. Rainfall, hasn't changed. I think this is the exact same map that you saw last board meeting, so we haven't really had any rain at all. We are tracking about average and equal with what we saw this time last year, but certainly the additional rain in July was very temporarily alleviated drought conditions, and then we are now back into the drought classification category. And then the last map showed, or the last graph, in green is our current stream flow, and the orange is the long-term median. So you can see all the way on the right that the green line is quite a bit below the orange line. So the river is below average. It's about 35 to 40 cubic feet per second currently. And then the blue bars are daily rainfall. So we have not had any significant daily rainfall in about the last 30 days. And that is what we have for staff reports, so thank you.
Are there any questions? Okay. That leads us to the end of our agenda. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Nobody wants to go home.
Second.
I'll second that.
In favor? We are adjourned. Thank you all for sticking with us through this entire meeting. Tom, thank you.
Y'all did some good, quick work there, my goodness.
Well done. Have a good one. My next meeting, 5 o'clock. Let's go.
Okay. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Oh,
I am very fond of
I'm visiting the area.
I was curious.
In fact, my head was in yours last fall.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
realized
So
I'm
on
not
the
gonna make sure I don't sit near the camera.
I just realized my greasy back of my head was in this one.
David, yeah, so just
I'm
Bolton,
Nice
Bolton,
to meet you.
The grant administration.
close to Bolton. So we spec'd it out and we intend on